Hey, welcome to the Happy Rant podcast. I am Ted Cluck, joined as always in studio by my good friends, my partners in radio, Barnabas Piper and Ronald J. Martin. Boys, I'm recording this episode swaddled in brand new high-end flannel, courtesy of Muskox Clothing for Men. Muskox is back. We were in a relationship with Muskox a while ago, and then they kind of wandered away from us. And now they're back, and I know they're back because I got a box full of free Muskox gear. I love this gear. It's kind of like outdoor clothing for dads. I'm in on it though. I'm completely in on it.
It's like outdoor clothing for church.
Outdoor clothing for church. Outdoor clothing for indoor church. There you go. There's a slogan they could.
Is there indoor church? I guess there is. You know.
Dude, there is here just because we don't care about COVID in West Tennessee.
It doesn't exist there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, did you not hear we defeated it in this state? Ronnie,
I'm sorry, I forgot.
I thought we
I didn't know
We're
if you guys were
monsters
like
who don't
Florida,
care
where
about people down here. Yeah.
Florida has never even recognized it, so you know.
And they seem to be thriving. So what are you going to do? But
Did you say dying or thriving? Go on.
Baby, are you a big COVID guy? Here I am. I'm putting you on the spot again.
What do you mean a big COVID guy?
I don't know. Are you like a big mask guy? Are you
big fan? Are you huge fan?
Are you like a big finger wagger?
No, not at all. I mean,
if somebody's not like wearing their mask right, are you like, hey, really, your nose? Come on.
No, I don't. I mean, I'm not here to tell anybody but our congregation what to do, for sure.
Okay, okay. So you're not like a huge COVID guy.
Well, no. I mean, our governor said you have to wear a mask, so you have to wear a mask. You know, so that's where I'm at.
There it is.
So, yeah,
there it is.
Not controversial to me.
Ronnie, why are you living in fear?
The governor also said we have to wear pants, so I put on pants every time I walk out of the house.
Solid, baby. That's just good.
It's just good. It's just logic, you know.
That's wisdom. That's wisdom from you. That's why you're the man of the cloth. You're the man of some new flannel cloth though from Muskox.
So Muskox, man, it's doing good, man. Yeah, it's looking good on me. I've already worn a couple items. Feeling really good about it. I've worn the Muskox. It's sort of like this olive army green T-shirt that fits really well. And
Nice.
so I wore that thing on Sunday doing some baptisms.
There you go.
Some very socially distanced, safe baptisms.
There it is. Yeah, don't let anybody think that you were closer than.
What
6 feet.
is that like a dunk tank? What is a socially distanced baptism?
What does that look like?
It's wearing a mask and gloves. Yeah.
Do you just kind of wave them into the water from 6 feet away?
he uses a wand.
Yeah, I used a wand. We're going Harry Potter on the baptisms, and
terrific.
So then some guy, somebody posted a picture of it, and some guy wrote and said, "Did that dude have leprosy?" Like referring to my gloves and my mask. Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, as a matter of fact, he did."
We need to treat him like he does.
Right.
That's what I've learned about
his name was
treat
Naaman.
Everyone like they have leprosy.
He was Naaman. So that's how we roll.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone is Naaman.
You dunked him 7 times. That's
we
great.
dunked him 7. We always do 7 times. You know.
Hey, you know what's great for covering up leprosy? Muskox clothing. Piper, tell us about our. I'm working here, guys.
I feel like we've already done. We've done Muskox.
You're so on point.
No, he hasn't, dude.
Please.
No, I'm actually wearing one of the Muskox t-shirts right now too, and it's one of my favorites. But I think my favorite items of theirs are their flannel shirts. They're better than all the other flannels, and I have a closet full of flannel because it's my favorite item of clothing.
They're better than all the other flannels. I love that line, man. Don't get specific. They're better than, and I quote, all the other flannels.
I've tried all of the other flannels, every single one of them. And none of them
Big
hold
T,
a
make a
candle
note
to
that
the Muskox
Piper
one.
has literally tried on every flannel that has ever been made.
That's impressive.
Look,
I feel like we could do a whole
If it's an unverifiable claim, I get to make it. So there we go. It's like
perfect.
it's like when people are like world famous donuts. Well, maybe they have a cousin in Ireland or something. I don't know. So listeners, if you go to gomuskox.com, so not just Muskox, but gomuskox.com, you can browse their full selection. Their like sweater pullovers are awesome. They've released a whole bunch of new sort of active gear that's more like workout gear. That's really nice. I love their hoodie as well. And then at checkout, use the code Happy Rant, and you can get a 15% discount. And the stuff it's on the higher end of cost. It's not massively expensive, but it's not. We're not talking TJ Maxx here. So you're also you're paying for something worthwhile. So go to gomuskox.com, use Happy Rant at checkout, get a 15% discount. They have a membership program, so if you're a loyal customer, you actually earn money back on future purchases too. So that's a pretty sweet deal. I love their gear. Ted loves their gear. Ronnie loves their gear, and I've actually bought a bunch on top of the free stuff. So I'm a real customer, not just a promoting things that I get for free customer.
Really
solid.
So yep, I'm really in this thing. So go check them out, listeners. Our other sponsor today, as usual, is Dwell Bible app. You know all about them, regular listeners. It's an audio Bible app. Given our episode last week and how just abysmal that episode was and how abysmal America is, Dwell was kind of the perfect response for my mind and heart, which is basically I need the Bible because politics are the worst. So Dwell is very timely. If you go to dwellapp.io/happyrant, you can get a 25% discount off of that subscription as well. dwellapp.io/happyrant. Check that out. It's a great way to get scripture into your life, kind of out to the edges where normally you might not have time or space to do that. So check them out as well.
Excellent, Piper. Excellent promo work. I kind of want to stay in the outdoor, rugged muskox clothing space for this first topic. This was a listener question, and from time to time we get super insightful questions from our listeners, and this one fits that category. He says this: why do young Reformed guys have to be so edgily masculine with the beards, tattoos, cigars, bourbon, leather, and whatnot? So why do young Reformed guys have to be so edgily masculine with the beards, tattoos, beards and beers, tattoos, cigars, bourbon, leather, and whatnot? What do you guys think of that? This is a topic that's been around for a while. This kind of morphed from the Drisky tap out t-shirt era and has kind of transitioned into beards and leather. So what's up with this, Pipe?
It fascinates me because I feel like when I hear that description, I picture somebody who is between the age of 42 and 55, not somebody I would consider particularly young.
Don't you think the issues are the same though?
Guys.
What's that? Don't you think the issues are the same? That 42-year-old guy probably has the same masculinity issues. Don't you think? Guys in our
I think that's true.
Kind of genre.
I would just venture to say that the young Reformed guys have different masculinity issues.
Oh, talk about that. Interesting.
Listeners may have heard on occasion on this podcast a reference to something called vulnerability voice.
Oh, V-voice. It's back.
Yes, which and then with that comes a whole bent towards kind of hypersensitivity to all things and being a bit thin-skinned and a bit pearl clutchy about things. I think that's a lot more the failure of young Christian men, Reformed and otherwise.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you have the faux lumberjack Doug Wilson wannabes who are, just aggressively over masculine. I think both of them are just exhibiting a level of insecurity, and they're like, God made me a man, and I'm just going to figure out what that means. Instead, they're like, God made me a man, so I need to either hide it or dominate. And there's just this craziness. But the picture that was painted really seems like the former young restless Reformed who have now grown into who
are now 42.
Yeah, they're like the dads of the vulnerability voice people.
Totally. Now, do you think, here's a theory. Do you think there's all these V-voice kids because there's all these fake masculine dads? Do you think one has produced the other? You know what I'm saying? My dad lumbered around the house in his big stupid beard and swilling his bourbon and I don't know, swinging leather around, and I want to go the other way.
Wouldn't let my mom wear shoes and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna go all V-voice.
I'd like to hear Ronnie's take on this because he has a congregation that sits in a little different demographic than where I am, and so I feel like maybe there's some nuance to this.
Yeah, I mean, there's none of it. There's really not a lot of that going on. It's sub Ashland, So we don't really have kind of the Reformed crowd, and we don't wear Reformed capes while we're leading and preaching, from the platform. So we're kind of we're a little more subtle. We're a little more covert Reformed at substance, but So yeah, I don't know. But I do think that we're seeing some offshoots with it, right? So I think that, like even when you go to Sojourn Network, I think if you would have gone back maybe 6, 7, 8 years, you would have seen a lot more of kind of what that question was asking. But this thing has gone like really wide now. So that was kind of characteristic of that A29 movement, right? With Drisky, and there was kind of that masculine, kind of macho, kind of like be a man, make sure you're leading your family and you're doing it as aggressively as possible. And I think there's been a little bit of a pushback against that, in recent years to say like, man, was that really what we were trying to like communicate? Is that really how we feel about what God's, calling us to do and to be as dudes? And I think, depending on where you're at on the spectrum of that, my answer would be no. But if we're just talking image, reformdom's just, it's where everything else is at, right? It's moving on. It's as well as it's stuck in the past with some of these things, so.
When I feel like part of it is that when you attach masculinity to reformdom, 15, 20 years ago, those two things were both, people felt threatened. Reformdom was kind of on its heels in the face of sort of flabby evangelicalism and the emergent church and whatever. And then masculinity has always been threatened, apparently, even though the world is run by aggressive men. So you attach those two things together, and people became kind of aggressively both, and they wore both of those things like armor. Like they're in your face about their huge beard and their huge theological knowledge, and it felt very much like a kind of a theology measuring contest, and I think some of that has gone away because I don't feel like the reformed world in general, outside of a few pockets, which are kind of isolated and angry, doesn't come off as overly threatened anymore. And so that seems to be a thing that is diminishing as far as I can tell. It's out there, but not as much.
I don't know, Pipe. That's a great discussion, though, but because I think what you're seeing now, one of the offshoots of the YRR is the RRR, which I call the radicalized right reformed, right? So there is a segment now that's very, like...
Hey, way to keep us out of politics, baby. Good job.
I was having a good day, too.
Yeah. It's not politics.
I haven't hated my life in a while.
Dude, radicalized, right, reformed. These would be the Doug Wilson, aficionados that are very much
the James White.
Yes, very much like folks, needing to sort of prove their masculinity. And you're seeing tweets about where they think women's places are, and the home and the workplace, and a lot of it is just there's a lot of misogyny and misogynistic sort of thoughts and philosophies that just kind of seem to inch their way through some of these things. So there's definitely like an offshoot of YRR that I think we're seeing kind of starting to bubble over and happen in some of these things, is they're sort of saying, hey, this is what we want to be about. So they're looking back on when all the Young Restless and Reform stuff kind of came in, and they're saying, hey, some of that stuff, we loved it in the beginning, but it's kind of gone in a direction that we don't love. So we want to kind of take it back. And so it's becoming a little radicalized and a little weird and a little strange. But masculinity is kind of attached to it, which is like, we got to beef ourselves up a little bit.
I would venture to say, and somebody's going to gun me down for this via their words, whatever.
They have guns. The RRR has guns.
That radicalized version is not reformed. It's just
technically no.
Because if all it has done is claimed like one aspect of reformdom in terms of how God saves people, and said, okay, we're that version of reformed, and then they're just angry fundamentalists.
Nobody's going to disagree except for them.
They're not different than like the snake handlers who live in like rural North Carolina in just about every other area of life.
Big T, what's your thought on snake handlers, since we're on that now?
Yeah, let's get it out of politics. Let's get into like zoology.
Dude, if you look at snake handlers, I bet they have big beards. They wear a lot of flannel. They probably wear a lot of leather. I'm guessing that's just part of the part of the deal. If you're getting ready to handle snakes, you got a good pair of leather boots. I don't know. They probably look like reform guys.
Baby, can I tell you something about that? I literally
Please do.
I literally on a Sunday night meeting, I had someone new come in, church meeting, just kind of checking things out, and they literally asked me with no irony. They said, and I quote, "So are you guys one of these churches that like from time to time may like handle snakes or whatever?"
And you said only on Wednesday night.
I said only on our Wednesday, only during Wednesday night, like men's group. You know,
we kind of let our hair down. We handle some snakes.
We let our beards down. We handle a few snakes.
Don't even get
it's
me
all
started.
in good fun. Handling snakes is all in good fun. And if people just kept it at that, we'd be fine.
Why doesn't that make Instagram, Ronnie?
What do you mean? The snake handlers?
Yeah. Do you have like a separate account for like Ronnie the snake handler? Did I just miss it?
Yeah, I would. What if snake handling sort of made its way into reformdom?
Dude, that would be dope.
What if that became all the RRRs, the radicalized right reformers, like they said, hey, here's a way we can become even more masculine. Let's just bring the snakes into church.
Dude, it's dangerous. I mean, if you want to prove like what a tough guy you are, that would be a pretty good way to do it.
Absolutely.
You know? Is it the new axe throwing?
Dude, that's what it is.
I think it should be the new axe throwing.
Yeah.
Like we need to level up axe throwing by like introducing snakes to the whole equation.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing. It's amazing axe throwing is like this thing now too. You know what I mean? It's like
is it still a thing?
I mean, I can.
Well, got 20 minutes
I can
left.
totally pick. Oh, I can totally picture the snake handling thing working because, like, you have a conference and you're like, snake handling will be present, snakes will be provided, and then people are writing in there like, can I bring my own snake?
Dude, totally.
Like, I've got a great Diamondback Rattler in my trunk right now. You know, am I allowed to bring my own? It's like Top Golf. You know, can you bring your own clubs? And that's just for like the super extreme snake.
I've been raising snakes in my garage now for months. Are we allowed to? Is it like bring your own snake night on Wednesday?
It's got to be BYOS. We'll provide some snakes, but you can,
It's the next side hustle.
Right.
It's the next side hustle.
Pictures,
yeah,
like
this is
snake
like your
breeder.
Your reformed like business side hustle guy, kind of melding with your like reformed masculinity.
Multi-level snake.
Dudes coming to church with their axes and their snakes and their flannel, their dated flannels, and their beards. You know, like not loving their wives and like just
there'll be like
flying
snake subscription services, like Snake of the Month Club. You know, dude, it'll be like how reformed families used to raise like chickens in their backyard.
Now it's snakes
to teach their homeschool kids. Now it's snakes. Yeah,
but how do they vibe with the whole like snake serpent Genesis 3 thing?
I don't know, dude. Yeah. You're the man of the cloth.
No, I don't know. I'm saying I'm out on that.
Dude, you've already dropped 2 misogynies on us. I'm gonna let you like handle the snake thing.
2 misogynies, guys. How many misogynies am I allowed during a?
Dude, you're a big misogyny guy lately, baby. I feel like you're in your PhD and you're learning all these new terms and you're just dropping them on us.
Dude, I swear I didn't just learn that word, Big T. I didn't just learn the word misogyny.
I feel like you did though.
Dude, I promise I didn't. I have known about that word since like June. I did not just drop that word.
Well,
man.
I mean, then since June.
I mean, come on, fellas, give me a break.
Of
man.
course.
I've known about that word for like 4 months, 6 days.
Yeah. I've known about it for 6 days. I've used it 66 times. Dude,
right. I think we should have a fun word every week for the rant, and I think this week...
Oh, because misogyny is such a fun word.
We've decided misogyny is fun.
What a blast.
I think that's the fun word for the week, and it'll be a word that's clearly not fun. Like misogyny.
True. Oh, there it is again. What a blast.
I specifically avoided using the word soteriology earlier.
It was right on the tip of your tongue, too, Pipe. I could feel it when you talked about...
Oh, it was there, and I was like, I'm not going to be that guy, but then you said misogyny 17 times, and now here we are.
Pipe, I heard that they're not even reformed except for their soteriology, except, like, I don't even know what that word means either. So, like, I still haven't learned that word.
This is the state of your doctorate. You're learning, like... misogyny, but you're not even learning soteriology.
I haven't gotten
He's got theology flashcards.
I've learned misogyny, not soteriology.
Flashcards.
Yeah.
Big M, study with me.
That's what we do every night. That's what's going on at the Martini household.
when I took first semester Greek 2.5 times in college, the flashcards we had, they would sell these little cards with like hole punches, and you put them on a metal ring so you could flip through them. I just picture Ronnie with that, and he's like, "Oh, misogyny, that's a new one. Write it down." And then the definition on the other side with the
I wrote it down on the palm of my hand. I'm looking at it right now. It's getting all like because my hand's been sweating because this conversation's so nerve wracking. It's like I can barely.
Piper,
read what it says.
Ronald has that key ring that you spoke of, but like on each card it just says misogyny. Like 20 cards, but they all have the same word.
So Ronnie, what have you learned the past like 6 weeks in your doctoral program? All about misogyny.
I feel like it's that and like critical theory. Those are your two new words.
Absolutely, man. It's like old.
Yeah,
it's like Old Testament study, critical theory, and New Testament misogyny.
Well, there you go. Welcome to seminary in 2020.
Absolutely,
it's a magical place.
It's been really helpful. It's been super helpful.
Oh, I bet. It's just so practical. You know, PhD.
I mean,
yeah. Is it a D-Min or a PhD?
It's a D-Min. I'm not a maniac.
Yeah, I know, dude. I mean. I've got two takes.
To be clear, you're also not a misogynist. Just wanted to, No,
I'm not a misogynist. I might even be a soteriologist if I knew what that meant.
Dude, see, I feel like in the pantheon of the show, like Ron is he's going so far away from like being a misogynist. He would be like the V-voice guy in the show. You know what I mean? Like if I'm like, I would be on the other end. I'd be like the caveman. Ron's the V-voice guy, but no, I think it's a function of like where you live having a lot to do with this, right? And I think tip of the cap to where you live right now, Ronald. And I grew up in a Midwestern context, a lot like Ashland. I just don't think the masculinity thing is such a huge discussion in like small town middle America. I don't think guys are walking around going, "Who's manly? Am I manly? Are they manly?" Like, kind of everybody's manly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, it's more a function of, Piper's in that Nashville context where you're kind of having to prove yourself all the time. So I don't.
When it's really funny, it's really hard to prove yourself because like the version of manliness you grew up with, sort of the like I'm gonna chew glass and whatever is not acceptable. So now manliness looks a lot like not manliness. So to be a real man is to not be a real man, and now we're all confused.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, it gets puzzling.
Yeah, you said
maybe COVID is the best thing that ever happened to manhood. Like just stay in the house, stay in the house and avoid people.
I mean, I think you can be a misogyny guy and stay in the house too. You can do that. You can like
clearly you're proving
you can straddle that, right? You can be as misogynistic. You can be soteriologistic and stay home too. I'm not precluding that like on any level.
I like that you're just throwing suffixes on words now and even stringing them together.
Dude, this is grad school in 2020.
I think to be a soteriologist is probably up there with being a misogynist at some level. We're gonna have to.
Baby, it's a good thing Jared's grading your papers and you get an A+ for everything just preemptively.
Well, I mean, baby, didn't you mention that nobody fails anymore? You cannot. It's impossible.
Yeah, nobody fails anymore.
Right.
I mean, you're not gonna get lower than a B.
That's what I'm saying. It's literally impossible to get even a C. Like a C is like they know they can get sued. Like you can get sued if you give one of these kids a C.
Dude, a C is like you just walked up to my mom on the sidewalk and like spit in her face.
Right.
That's the equivalent.
I mean, you're sitting there. I can just picture you now, Big T. Like you have your hand on like whatever your grade paper is now. You have your hand on the marker, right? And you're getting ready to write C on there, and you go, "Oh my gosh, that's going to be like an hour-long conversation with this dude's dad," and then you just quickly edit it to a B, right?
And by this dude's dad, I mean this dude's mom.
Right.
100%.
That's what I'm saying. Right.
Yeah. The dads are too busy looking masculine, but not.
Right.
Actually making the phone call.
Well, they're soteriologists. So like, man, you just write C on that paper and like immediately the phone rings. It's like they already know.
They're actually masculine and they think he probably deserved a D and the C was a favor.
Hey, Big T, here's my question for you, man. Have you ever
lay it on me.
Have you ever had a parent of one of your students actually call and say, "I think you're being too easy on my kid"?
Dude, no, that never happens. That literally would never happen.
Have you ever had one encourage you to say, "Hey, I don't want you to be like, I want you, man, give this kid the grade he deserves. Don't worry about me. I trust you."
I have had that.
Okay.
But it's always from the people who don't need it. You know what I mean? Like their kids don't need it because they've been parented well and their kids are like...
They're already acing all their classes anyway.
Dude, they're working hard. They're mentally tough. Like, if you have the kind of dad or mom who would say that, then you probably don't need to say it.
Okay.
And shout out to those dads and moms. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, shout out to you, man. You are not misogynists at all.
Oh, dude. I didn't think this ep could be any more garbage than last week's, but it's clearly like veering into that territory.
Boys, I think we need a retreat. I think we need a sabbatical is what I think we're edging into here. I think that's what we're edging into.
Yeah, so, I mean, clearly, we gotta retreat and rest. All right, I've got one more question. This one is of a more serious nature. Not that all the misogyny talk hasn't been serious.
Can't possibly get any more serious than we've been.
This is from Joe C. This is from the great Joe Carter.
Is there 9? Are there 9 points to this question?
Yeah, he of like reformed website fame. I was going to say the name of the website, but then I forgot what it was. Is he with your Pops Pipe? Is he part of the Desiring God Empire?
No, he's Gospel Coalition.
That's what I thought. He's Gospel Coalition.
I can understand why you would get them all mixed up.
I do.
Yeah, they're all kissing cousins, but yes.
They are. What practical skills, this is the question, what practical skills should a pastor develop? List as many as you think are helpful. The less obvious they are, the more useful the suggestion will be for others.
Dude.
So what practical skills should a pastor develop?
My favorite was reading the responses to that tweet and realizing that apparently pastors are supposed to have every single skill.
Yeah.
All of them, Ronnie. So I don't know how you're doing on this, bud, but you're supposed to be like a financial wizard and the kindest person in the world, and be able to like diagnose diseases and understand how doctors are.
I'm going to be a doctor soon, so that will be possible.
Clearly.
Different kind of doctor, but be like an ethicist, and they're like love babies. Like you have to be everything. So, the answers to that were really something.
Well, Pipe, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this today, but I am a soteriologist. I have all of those categories clearly covered.
Pipe, is Ronald trying to tank the show so that he can like elegantly get out?
It's like he thinks there's betting on this, and like he's gonna try to throw the game for whoever's gonna pay him. Except that,
Boys,
I feel like he's like except that we're the ones who pay him.
I mean, you remember the ep from last week? We can't get any worse than this. Is not worse than last week. We're still miles ahead of that.
It's not worse from a like potentially inflammatory content standpoint. I think it's worse from a complete uselessness standpoint, maybe. But I don't know. There's still time.
Yeah, I mean, we got to get 3 or 4 minutes to.
We got to get 3 or 4 minutes to redeem it. Piper, what do you think about practical skills for pastors in light of the fact that you read the comments? Like, what do you think are the skills that they need?
I mean, I think that the basic job description of pastor, obviously it's different at a tiny church where you kind of have to wear multiple hats, but generally speaking, you have 1 or 2 things that you're like, this is the primary part of a pastor's job. There's the preaching of the word and the shepherding of a congregation. But other than preaching, the pastor can lean on other people for just about everything if it's something he's not good at. So like I think if there's a practical skill, it's identifying people to lean on.
Yeah.
Is probably the most important one, because he's just not going to be good at more than about 4 things. Like you can't be a wizard at a bunch of different things. So I think that's probably the most important practical skill, is looking around and going, who do I need to like pull into my sphere of influence who can help me with finances or help me with maintenance or whatever, help me, make the kids feel comfortable because I don't really like children. Those kinds of things, because it's not reasonable to ask a pastor to be all those things. Ronnie, are you a good delegator?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay. I'm not all into the do everything kind of, model. I've always kind of rejected that, but because I'm not, you're not good at everything, and you're good at a couple of things, maybe. And find the people that can fill in the holes and see if you can empower them and let them go. And so I think, but that's probably the challenge. I think what you said is really good. So we can get serious here for a minute, because I think what you said is really important in the sense that, you said a pastor can be good at 3 or 4 things, which is probably good, and that might even be generous, but find those things. So self-awareness is what you're describing. Find out what it is that you like to do, what God's gifted you to do, and then see who you can equip to fill in the gaps and the holes of the things that you just need help in, because, or maybe you just don't have the kind of margin or the mental capacity to, maybe you're a little more limited in some of those kind of areas too, where you're just like, man, I can preach and I can do some counseling, I can do a little bit of this and that, but like that's it for me right there. And I need other people to, it's a humbling thing to know what you're not able to do. And so I think humility, self-awareness, that's probably, we want to talk tasks, but we want to kind of like conveniently ignore some of the, some of the more like internal emotional components, which really are most key because, Timothy and Titus goes after character, not really tasks. So that's kind of it right there.
Yeah, and I think the task thing is probably more a product of the organizational like bloatedness that a lot of churches have turned into. Like the American church is unlike any Christian church in history.
How
in
so?
terms of just like the layers of organization and leadership, and like if you look at churches around the world, in terms of like paid staff, in terms of the congregational
totally
participation, the simplicity of like we gather together for worship and then we share each other's lives in daily life, whether that's in kind of whatever part of it could be developing world or kind of anywhere. And we have this massive organizational side where like 90% of the work is done by 5% of the people, and salaries are huge relative to the rest of the world. And so I think the answers to this are, in that thread, were mostly indicative of like, I think we got church like backwards in a lot of ways in terms of how much we look at a very small number of leaders to influence us instead of recognizing kind of the body of Christ aspect and going, we have people who excel at these things. We have people who have influence in these things. Like the idea of a pastor being an excellent person at finance is not in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like there's stewardship, there's generosity, there's managing his own household. So there's an element of like, can you pay your own bills and be responsible? But if you're asking a guy who went to seminary to manage like a $4 million budget, what are you doing?
Piece of cake.
Right.
Because those are not, and it's taking his eye off the ball.
Yeah.
Like if he's worrying about the $4 million budget, he's not preaching his best sermons. And so I think there's a real backwardness, and we've shoved a lot of things under the pastorate that are like, no, that needs to be pushed outward from the pastorate.
But what's funny is what you just described though. So if a dude's coming into a church with a $4 million budget, they probably already have a staff of like 30 people anyway, with like 3 executive pastors, 14 finance guys, and all of that anyway. So like a church with that kind of a budget, a good chance is, and again, I'm not saying this is right, but a good chance is this is a guy that's going to come in and really is only going to have to do like 1 or 2 things, right? He's going to be able to be like a specialist, right?
Yeah, but then he starts a podcast that's like, ask me anything. And you're like, no, you shouldn't. You should not do that. You should start a podcast that's like, Bible verse of
Ask
the
me
day,
2 things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask me about these 2 subjects that I actually know about, that I actually study.
Or maybe he just does a word of the day now that we do, like we do. Maybe he just does that. Maybe that's what he wants to do.
Dude, isn't that like very symptomatic of the human heart though? In that you give a guy a little success and he immediately thinks he's an expert on literally everything there is.
Is that
like?
But that's a really great point, T. In the sense that, like, so let me. I want to get you going more on this. So, so if you get like a dude, let's just say a younger guy who hasn't been pastoring for like an incredibly long time, but he gets this really big gig at this really big church with a $10 million budget. Is that the success, or does he get into a place like that and have it be sort of like a stepping off point for greater success? Or does he consider that like, man, I can't even believe it. I'm in this church of like, 7,000 people and the Lord has blessed me with this. Like, what is the success? Or is that always like a launch point?
I think that's the success, because if you're that guy, you're just a certain kind of guy anyway. Like you were the best looking guy at your seminary. You're the guy that everybody was saying was like gifted.
Well, that's damning with faint praise.
Yeah, exactly. Like being the world's tallest, short person.
Small person.
The world's tallest, ... Trying to think of the nice way to say it. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the success. And I think that's the danger of like too much success too soon, right? You get an inflated opinion of, yourself, like thinking that you know more than you actually know. And, we would probably all do better to be a little bit more realistic about that, which is why, I don't know, it's always a better hang. Like, it's always better to hang out with people who haven't had the straight up like rocket ship path to success, because they're going to be more humble. They're going to be more fun to talk to. They're going to be more insightful. They're not going to be jerks, or at least not in the same way. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Well, I think you talked about the human heart earlier. There's just a sense of every success, so youngish guy goes from, he's the whatever, the missions pastor at a mid-sized church to senior pastor at a large church. Mm-hmm. He feels like a success for about 2 to 4 years, and then he starts itching to be something more.
Totally.
We need to double the size of this church. I need to write a book, even though I can't
write my way out of a paper bag.
Sentences.
Yeah.
We need to start a media company. We need to whatever. Like, there's always that we need to, instead of any sense of like, maybe God put me here for this congregation for the duration,
dude. Which is
I'm
why
just going to focus on being a great pastor to this congregation.
People like that are so attractive to me. Like, people who are actually content, especially pastors, who are like, this is just what I'm doing. And we have one, like, tip of the cap to my pastor. He's amazing. But yeah, I find that like so compelling in a person. I almost just want to study him. Like, how are you so content? Why do you not want to start a media company or be published or whatever? I mean, it's so refreshing, I think, because of how rare it is. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I would like, even though I'm not a pastor, I would like to have more of that kind of contentment motif in my life for sure. But yeah, I think that's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
I was going to ask. Pipe, tell us about. I think this will be good for our listeners, man. Tell us about. How was Ray Ortland? I mean, so this was a guy that seemed, he planted a church at 60 years old, and he seems like somebody who really he had the right aspirations. I mean, what did that, you had a little bit of a bird's eye view. Like, what did that look like? What were like the two things that he was really good at that he did without letting himself get carried away with like ego and wanting to keep building and building and building?
Yeah, he's a wonderful example of, like, if you're a 30 or 40 something year old pastor, you should look at Ray and be like, I want to be like that when I grow up, and then do the things that he did. Yeah. Well, first of all, the church was planted out of failure. So not moral failure, but like, he was a pastor at a previous church. There was, I don't know all the details exactly, but there was some leadership dissension, and he left. Yeah. And so he was just sort of devastated at 60, thought it was the end of his ministry, and God sort of brought this group of people together who prayed together regularly and then laid on their hearts, maybe this should be a church. And so it was born out of a place of about as low as you can get, not some grand vision of we're going to plant in this cool neighborhood and, kind of parachute in and attract all this stuff and start with whatever. Ray was... he focused on preaching the word and the culture of the church. So seeing the gospel take root in every aspect of culture in the church. So the honesty of people, their interactions with one another, reflecting the idea of outdoing one another and showing honor. the being a culture of praise, and all of which is based out of humility. Like, you can't do those things unless there's a sense of I'm low before the Lord. He referenced often, I think it was Francis Schaeffer who wrote there's I think it's a talk he gave called God's Work in God's Way. And Schaeffer talks about how we can do God's work in our way, and that's what we often do, but it's God's work in God's way that makes the difference. And so there's just, it's that, and then like, he was perpetually surprised at growth. So as the church grew, he told me, he said, every Sunday I walk up front, I look out, and for a while there was 40 people, and then there was 140 people, and there was 240 people, and the church has never been mega. I don't know what we are now because COVID has changed it all. We were probably on track to crack 1,000 per Sunday this year, so big but not enormous. And he just said it was always a surprise to look out and see people. It always felt like a miracle to him that people showed up, which tells you something about his his posture before God. He did not roll out there and go, I'm Ray Ortland. Of course people are going to show up. You know, there was none of that. Yeah. And so, but that focusing and that hyper focus on the culture of the church, because it just meant the church didn't do a lot of things.
Yeah.
People would have ideas. What if we tried this? And it just didn't fit. He's like, no, we're not going to invest in that. It was very stripped down, very simple, and kind of never take your eye off the ball. And almost none of that describes what you see at churches around America. It was very different culturally, or is to now. I mean, TJ, our current pastor, has carried that over.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, boys, that's a good note to end on. We got there.
Did we redeem it?
Yeah, we redeemed it. We got there finally. And I think we brought this one around. Baby, real quick before we end, let's go like 2 minutes on this. How's the new pod with at Jared C? Is it everything you hoped and dreamed? Is it?
Oh, baby.
Is it exciting?
It's just, we're just still kind of waiting for it to. There's still some other stuff that needs to happen before it kind of gets officially kind of launched.
I mean, you're flying up there for every ep, I hope.
Yeah. We're flying to.
You're going to be like $12,000 in the hole,
undisclosed
right
location somewhere in Switzerland, because that's where Calvin was from. We're doing it live.
Well, absolutely.
From Calvin Land every week. It's
I love it.
No, we've recorded some eps, just a few. They've been good. I think they're going to get better, and they're really fun. They're really short, and they're really fun. So,
dude, one of the greatest achievements of my life to this date is getting that goofy like TV radio interest in Fort Wayne to like bring us in to do our stupid thing in the studio when it added no value.
Zero value. Zero.
None.
Yeah. All the traveling, all of the time we had to take to do what we're doing right here in 23 minutes.
I know it.
Insane.
Yeah.
So the travel to Switzerland has been like oppressive so far, but we're committed.
Well, it's tough. I know how much.
But I heard it's a beautiful
country. It's a beautiful country, man. It's Calvin's country. It's
Calvin's
country. We're doing it, man.
Calvin, he knew what he was talking about.
He knew
what he was doing.
Everything he was saying, man. All 5 of his points were on point.
Well, as we have been, boys, wandering to and fro throughout these topics, we have done what we always do, and we will see you. And doggone it, I always want to.
No, I like that. Don't even delete that. Just
man, you have been on it's like an earwig for you. You get that.
Yeah.
Other
See, I get it, man. You've only been doing this sign off for like 7 years. I mean, it's
Piper. I've got the yips. I'm like, I'm like a catcher who can't throw the ball back to them.
Let's do another.
The Rick and Keel of closing a podcast.
Come up with something new right now on the spot,
dude. Rick and Keel. I love it. Until next time, Rick and Keel.
The Happy Rant is brought to you by Resonate Recordings. If you go to resonaterecordings.com, you can see the full range of services they offer. So if you're considering starting a podcast, they are the ones we recommend going with. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see their prices, to connect with them and ask any questions, and to see what they can do to help you launch, edit, master, and improve your podcast. Again, go to resonaterecordings.com to see what they can do to help you launch and improve your podcast.